Thank you, Jeremy. So good morning, everyone. I am Kurtis Lindqvist. I am the CEO of LINX. And I remember to actually introduce myself. I take for granted everyone knows who I am. So I'm going to give the CEO update. The problem being on day 2 is that some of my colleagues covered a lot of this already yesterday. So we're going to now just see if you paid attention to where there's a difference. So just some of the statistics, and Richard covered this yesterday. We have again had quite a bit of growth in peak traffic, which might be less interesting, but we have seen quite a bit of growth in connected capacity. So we're now at over 54 terabits, which is healthy growth as we see that continuing. And we've seen, as Richard talked about yesterday, we have seen some growth in 400 gig ports, and I think we have some more 400 gig ports lined up. So we continue to see growth there. We have seen 100 gig ports past 400, and we still see growth in the 10 gig ports. So we see growth across the board on all the types of ports we have. So that's very good, and we have started the year with quite a healthy membership applications as well. So all very positive across the board in that. If we look at the networks connected to each of the LINX LANs, we see this is the net growth. Obviously, we see more applications, but there's some cancellations, and they tend to be a bit higher towards the end of the year. This is since the last LINX meeting, I should say. So there's been some slow growth across this, and where we continue to see growth is at JediX, where we're now past 20 networks, which I think, and we have quite a few networks lined up waiting for joining there as well. So again, growth across the board on all of those. What's more interesting I want to cover was the 1st of January last year, we launched the peering services, which was our, was meant to provide a more granular service offering, first of all, but also to provide an easier upgrade path for networks who wanted to grow from 1 gig up to 100 gig and beyond. We introduced the 2 and 5 and 30 gig services, and we also said that we would. Our aim is to sunset or close down the 1 gig ports by the end of this year. So we have had a bit of a drive to try and convert members into the 1 gig ports. 43% of all 1 gig services have been converted into 1 gig over 10 gig. So 1 gig peering service over a 10 gig physical port. So there's been quite a healthy growth in that service, of course. And also we see growth on the other services. So this seems to be, as we had hoped, we continue to see this growth. I actually think that's supposed to be +3 on the 2 gig, not -3. I think that's a typo on my part, by the way. So we have, because we've seen growth across all these services, so this change in service offering seems to be doing what we had hoped it would do, which is very good news for us to see. We'll continue to work on the 1 gig migrations towards the end of the year, and hopefully we'll get everybody converted by then to 1 gig service over 10 gig ports, as we had intended to do. So that's on a little bit on the growth and where we see growth in services. Staff changes, we have had 3 new starters, which is Camille, Tyrone, and Dominic. We've had no leavers in the period. We still have 3 open positions that have been open for actually quite a long time. So they are there as well. Something that's been taken up a bit of time, and I want to talk about this a little bit, is that I started presenting this a year ago, I think it was, if I remember correctly, that the LINX board and the SMT obviously set a strategy for LINX. They are set in 3-year cycles, and I presented about what the previous strategy was for, I think, 2 or 3 times. And then annually we evaluate that strategy together and ensure we're still on the right track and that the strategy is delivering what we had set it out to do. The next strategy cycle is from this year for the coming 3 years. We're working with this at the moment. And this strategy planning is a fairly well-defined process where we look at the needs of the members. There's ongoing interviews with members, and we gather information from what the member feedback to us is. We also look at the market environment. That's everything from the macroeconomic cycles to to what we think is services that might be needed from members in the future. And then we sort of take this into account and build a strategy from that. The next strategy will be approved, as I said, this year. The final approval comes at a board strategy days, as Pete mentioned yesterday, that the board and SMT holds at the end of March, where we'll be going through this and we'll discuss what this means for LINX. And as we have started doing, I intend to come back and present this to the LINX membership, as we have done in the last year, and come back and then sort of explain that to you once we have it agreed, which is always a good start. So that's work that's been taking quite a bit of time recently to work on this, but I thought we'd talk about how we develop this strategy and where that comes from. LINX Nairobi, we announced some time ago. As we said then, we were waiting for a license application that you need to have in Kenya. We have been notified that the license has been approved by the regulator, but it's not yet issued. There's a process from having it approved to having it issued, so we're now waiting for the actual license to be given to us. And then there's a few more steps we need to take to be compliant that we need to do. And at the same time, as Richard mentioned yesterday, we're working on the deployment at the LINX Africa data center in Nairobi, which will be the first site in Nairobi. Richard also mentioned yesterday that we're working on the expansion in Saudi Arabia. We have JEDIX in Jeddah, that we have also announced actually a year ago that we're going to expand to Riyadh and Dammam. This is waiting on the finalization of the data centers, so that we can actually deploy this, and that's, as Richard said yesterday, is what we're working on at the moment for deployment. Last, a bit about some other developments we've been doing. This is really exciting, I know, but we have changed our finance systems. I know that you're all dying to hear about the ins and outs on this. This is quite a big change internally for us, because it's not just the finance systems, it's also our purchase ordering system, asset management, as in asset management from a finance point of view. And the reason I mention this is that there was some of you will have noticed that there was a bit of an issue when we did launch this with direct debits. I think all members who were affected by this did get contacted by the finance team, so they should all be cleared. But this was has brought us quite a bit of, it's a system maybe more tailored to LINX size and needs than what we've had in the past. So I think that's quite a positive change for us. But as all of these things, changing finance systems and bringing across accounts isn't trivial. But that's now completed and done, so hopefully going forward that should be a smooth ride for that you as members see from our services. And this is part of an ongoing effort that Richard talked about yesterday as well, about that we're trying to build more internal and externally facing tools. You will have seen how we keep adding functionality to the LINX portal for member self-service and configuration. You can deploy a lot of the configurations by yourself now without talking to the NOC. We do track this. I didn't actually include the graph, maybe I should have. We do track this internally to see how many of these services are actually done manually by the NOC when you contact the NOC, and how many is done by members directly. And our ambition is that we should always have more services done directly by you, because one is faster, and it saves you the interaction from us. And I think all but 1 month since we started tracking this, it has been done mostly been done by members, as opposed to on the portal, as opposed to contacting the NOC. And actually more interesting, we have now launched the connections. Partners can change the configuration themselves, and we also have some of the new services like cloud and private VLANs. And I think close to 100% of all the changes are done on the portal, as opposed to contacting the NOC, which is sort of what we want to see, because it provides a better user experience for the members. But we do track this, and we also track to make sure that we get the return on these investments, and also try to get feedback for how can we do this better, how can we deliver better service on the portal for the members with this. Richard also mentioned yesterday that we do track feedback. I only included 2, but we do track, actually, we now have every single interaction you have with LINX, which is the NOC, sales and finance. We do track these feedback. So the scoring is reported to the SMT and actually internally every month. If you write comments that you can provide feedback, these are actually also fed internally, and I read every single one of them as well. So we do take this quite seriously, and we do try to act on them. So as Richard did yesterday, we do encourage you to provide feedback, both positive and negative, because that will help us to improve the service. Not all of these queues have as much interactions as the other one, as you can see by the difference in volume. There's quite a spread in how much of these tickets we actually have across these. And I just wanted to mention that we are, as I said last time, we continue to have some compliance and certification, which is the ISO 27001 and FSQS, and especially on 27001, that's an ongoing work that we keep doing throughout the year. And for each of these checkpoints, that's something we continue to work on, and that's quite important to us. We believe that one day there's members who actually expect this from us these days. It also helps us to meet some of the other regulatory requirements on us. These are very much part of ensuring that we can meet those for the future. I'm sure we'll have reason to come back and talk more about in the coming years as the TSA has become a bit more clear, and the implications perhaps I'm sure we'll cover that in some more great detail. And that was all I had as a CEO update. Any questions for me? Okay. I guess not then. All right. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Kurtis.